at the end of the day, the worst thing that happens is you meet someone, they're not someone you want to see again, and that's it. Like, it doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. That is literally it. You're literally going to meet someone, and at the end of it, you either have met someone that you want to see again, or you've met someone that you'll just see them for that time, and that's it. You haven't lost anything by going on that date. Going on a first date can be really nervous, it can be really uncomfortable, there can be butterflies, you can feel a bit anxious before you go. So today I thought I would share the things that I tell myself before I go on a date. So as I'm kind of getting ready, as I'm preparing to meet someone for the first time, I try to make sure that my mindset is really positive, that I'm telling myself confident things, and I don't let the negative what ifs run away with me, because I feel like that can really, really impact how I show up and how I feel about myself on a date. So as I'm telling you, I'm going to walk you through my skincare and my makeup routine, kind of like a get ready with me, because I love watching these kind of things, so I thought it'd be really fun. So first of all, I start with the Lizelle Instant Boost Skin Tonic Toner. So I've obviously cleansed my face in the shower. I use the Lizelle cleansing polish, so I use that, and then I use this afterwards. I've never done one of these videos before, and I feel like it's going to be really hard for me to multitask, but I love to watch these. These are my favourite kind of videos to watch, because I'm just so nosy about what other people use on their skin, and I always think it's nice to like talk about first date stuff. So this is the Ren Brightening Dark Circle Eye Cream. So I have this concept that I created called the 90-90 mindset concept, and it's a concept to help you feel confident every day. So feel confident in yourself every day. And as part of the 90-90 mindset concept, there are 3 core principles. So principle 1, got the Clinique Smart SPF moisturizer. So core principle number 1 is that you don't need to worry about being 100% confident 100% of the time. You only need to work on becoming 90% confident 90% of the time, because we're human beings and we're not going to feel confident all day, every day. Principle number 2 is that you only need 90 seconds of confidence to make a decision, to take action, to do something that is going to propel you forwards, and that's going to help you move forwards in life. It's going to help you to achieve something that you want to achieve. So all you need is 90 seconds of confidence, and that works really well when it comes to dating, and if you're nervous before going on a date, because instead of thinking, oh my god, I've got to be confident for the next 90 minutes, next couple of hours, next however long, if you can conjure up 90 seconds of confidence as you're waiting for them to arrive, then when you first meet them, you're going to be confident. And then if you think about it as like every 90 seconds, so okay, I can be confident for these 90 seconds, focus on those 90 seconds, be confident, and then think, okay, now I can be confident for another 90 seconds and another 90 seconds. So you break it down in an easier way to, I feel like I've not explained this very well, like in an easier way to stay confident. So instead of worrying yourself about, oh, I need to be confident for all this time, you just focus on 90 seconds, and that 90 seconds is going to get you into the date feeling really confident in yourself. Then the third core principle of the 90-90 mindset is that there are 3 layers of confidence you need to create in order to be confident every day, to be confident in every situation. And these 3 layers are think confident, which is all about your mindset, your inner narrative, working on changing any limiting beliefs. It's really about the way that you think. Then there's act confident, which is really about the practical actions you can take to appear confident, to come across as confident, to present yourself as confident. And it's also about confidence comes from taking action, because we could do all the mindset work in the world, but until you actually put yourself into an uncomfortable position, such as going on a first date for the first time, then you're never going to reach the levels of confidence that you desire, that you deserve. Once you've done something scary, it adds a new layer of confidence to you. And then there's the feel confident layer, which is all about working on how you feel inside. So it's the kind of energetic layer. It's feeling confident energetically, it's feeling confident in your body, in the way that you are. And as I get ready for a date, I always make sure that I am covering all of these layers. So as I said, in this video, we're going to talk about the things that I say to myself. So this is the think confident layer. It's the things that I say to myself as I'm getting ready for a date, so that when I arrive at the date, I'm already feeling confident, and those first date nerves have, maybe they've not disappeared altogether, but they've definitely lessened. So instead of rocking up to a date feeling really anxious or nervous, I can just rock up feeling my confident self. And I always think that the more confident you feel, the more authentic you are, and the better you can connect with someone, because you're not in your head the whole time thinking, what are they going to be thinking about me? What are they going to be saying? Like, am I good enough? Do they like the way I look? All that kind of stuff. So where are we? Right, next I'm going in with the Beauty Flash Balm by Clarins, because I just like this. It's like a special little, I don't use this all the time, but if I've got like a special occasion, then I'll just put some of this on. It's really interesting to me how things have changed for me in terms of dating. I feel like when I used to date in my 20s, my main concern on the dates was always, what will they think of me? I was always in my head around, are they gonna like me? Are they gonna think I'm attractive? Am I gonna say the right thing? Am I gonna be funny enough? All that kind of stuff. It was very much, what are they going to think about me? And I was worried about the impression that I would give. Whereas now I'm in my 30s, I feel like things have changed slightly. I feel like I'm more, what am I going to think about them? Like, what if I don't like them, or I don't connect with them? How am I going to like turn them down? Or it's just a different energy. I feel like I'm not concerned about what they think of me. And I think that really comes from me getting to a place where I really like myself, I really love myself, I really accept myself for who I am. And I think when you go into a date with that energy, it's naturally better anyway, because you don't have those worries around what they're going to think of you, and you just get to kind of enjoy yourself a bit more, because you're just not in your head so much. So that's a great great mindset shift to try and have if you can, because it's just going to be so much nicer going in with that energy of like, I don't need to worry about what they think of me. Not necessarily going in thinking, oh, am I gonna like them? Like, it doesn't matter. This is the SOS primer by Clarins. So I said I'm probably not going to be able to multitask. So the most important thing when going on a first date is, when preparing to go on a first date, is you want to feel confident in yourself. You want to feel at your best. You want to feel comfortable to be honest and vulnerable, not in a like, let me share my sob story with you, but be open with who you are, with your values, with what's important to you, with where you kind of want to be. And in order to feel confident in yourself, you need to look at what you're kind of saying to yourself before you go on the date. So if you're saying to yourself, I don't know, things like, I used to say to myself, like, what if they don't think I'm attractive? What if they don't think I'm funny? What if they don't agree with my opinions? If you're saying those things to yourself, you spiral into this worrying what if state. And when you're in that state, everything else is gonna, the way you hold yourself, you're gonna probably slouch a bit more. You're gonna look like you're not confident. You're gonna feel nervous. You're gonna feel anxious. Whereas when you tell yourself really positive things and you focus on how amazing you are, you're gonna naturally stand taller, you'll naturally come across as more confident, more able to speak confidently and openly. You'll feel better in your body. And instead of thinking, this has got to be the one, like I have to meet the one now, this has got to be an amazing first date, and building it up into your head and trying to decide what the date's going to be like before you go, instead you'll just see it as this fun opportunity to connect with someone new. And that's exactly what dating is. Dating is just meeting someone you've never met before, having a drink, having some dinner, going and doing something fun, connecting with someone to see whether more of a connection can be built. I see it as like a fun activity to go and do, and to just get out there and do something different. I went on I'm putting some setting spray on now. It's like a fix and go, but I use it as a primer as well. It's the Rimmel one. So I went on a really fun date, actually. Like it was the first date, and the guy had said to me, "Oh, like, what do you want to do?" I was like, "I don't mind. Like, you decide." And he booked tickets to go to like a museum, but it was called the Twist Museum in London. So it's all like optical illusions, fun. What are they called? What are the exhibition things called? Not exhibition, that's not the word I'm looking for. I don't know. All like fun areas where there was lots of different things to kind of look at, to kind of see, to talk about. And this was really fun for me because I felt like, because we were doing this joint experience together, we instantly had stuff that we could talk about. Whereas sometimes when you go for like drinks or you go for dinner, or even if you go for a walk, like it's very starting fresh, and yeah, you might have been chatting to someone through messages, but it's still that initial like, oh, I don't really know what to talk about first. Whereas because we did this, it was like a joint experience, so we talked a lot about the different what is that word, the different exhibitions isn't the word that I want to use. What is the word? We talked about the different installations, I think, is that it? I don't know. We talked about all the different art installations and all the different optical illusions and all the different places within the museum as we were going through. And I felt like it really broke the ice, because then when we came out and we were already like, okay, well, this was fun, we've enjoyed ourselves. And then we went for dinner, and because we'd already spent like an hour and a half in each other's company, when we then sat down to dinner, it was easy to kind of start conversation, to talk about all the other things that you talk about on a first date. This is the Dior Forever Skin Glow foundation. This is what I wear when I've got fake tan on. I wear a lighter one when I'm not tanned, and I wear this one when I've got fake tan on. Although the fake tan's coming off a little bit. But yeah, so that was just such a fun experience. And before the date, I think this helps as well. Before the date, I told myself, I'm gonna go and I'm just gonna have fun. I wasn't actually feeling particularly well before this date, but I didn't want to cancel last minute. And I was just like, I'm just gonna go and we're just gonna have fun. And no matter what happens, we've had a fun experience. I've done something different. I've met someone new. I've pushed myself out of my comfort zone, because I hadn't dated for a little while. I'd had like a bit of a break from dating when this date happened. So I was like, rather than putting expectations on the date of, I'm gonna go, it has to look like this, it's got to be Mr. Right, I've got to feel a connection or whatever, like it needs to be something, instead of me trying to make the date something, I just went with no expectations other than, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna have fun, whatever happens, it's going to be a good experience. And I think so many people, and I include myself in this, like when I was younger, this was very much me, go on a first date with the intention or with the expectations that they're going to have a connection straight away. And I actually did this on the first date I went on after my breakup. I had a big breakup a few years ago, and the first date I went on afterwards, I was kind of expecting a bit of a fairy tale. I hadn't been on a date for like 7 years at this point, because I'd been in a long-term relationship for 5. I hadn't been on a date. I'd been single for a while. So I kind of put all my hopes on this being a really good date, and I set myself up for, then it needs to be a fairy tale, and I want to feel a spark, and I want to feel like I'm complimented a lot, and I really wanted it to be something that it was never going to be. And I found that because I'd set myself up, because I'd told myself that it was going to look a certain way and the date had to feel a certain way and be a certain way, I ended up feeling a little bit disappointed, which wasn't the fault of the guy. Like, he was a nice guy, we had a good chat, we laughed, it was fine, like it was a fine date, but I had kind of set myself up for disappointment because of what I'd been telling myself beforehand. Whereas after learning from that lesson, I just tell myself, well, you're gonna go, you're gonna have fun, it's gonna be a great time. at the end of the day, the worst thing that happens is you meet someone, they're not someone you want to see again, and that's it. Like, it doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. That is literally it. You're literally going to meet someone, to have a conversation, have a few drinks, go for dinner, do whatever, and that's it. And at the end of it, you either have met someone that you want to see again, or you've met someone that you'll just see them for that time, and that's it. You haven't lost anything by going on that date. Concealer time. This is a collection, 2001, I think. Last Imperfection hydrating serum concealer. So I think this is one thing that has really changed the game for me. Instead of writing my future before I go on the date, I just go with an open mind. Instead of telling myself like, oh, this is what the date is going to be like, and getting carried away, which can happen if you've been chatting to someone for a little while and you're finally getting to meet them, and you kind of think that there's this chemistry or there's these feelings before you meet them. It's very common for us to build up this whole story in our minds before we actually meet them. This is something that many of us do. Like, I've done it, my friends have done it, people that I know online have done it. Like, you have this, you think you have the connection over messages, and then you're like, okay, well, this is what the first date's going to look like, this is how it's going to go down. And then when that doesn't happen, you get that disappointment. So instead of writing your future before you meet them, just go with an open mind. Be open-minded and allow the date to transpire however it's going to transpire. And I think don't kind of like pin all your hopes on someone. One of the other things I like to say to myself to really help myself feel confident is I go into the I get my affirmations out. I'm a massive fan of repeating positive affirmations. Affirmations help me change my life. When I was too afraid to leave the house and really wanted to change the way that I was living, I started using affirmations to help me transform things, to help me change my mindset, to help me say yes to the things that terrified me, and to really push myself to live a better life. I'm a massive fan of affirmations. So when it comes to going on a first date, I'll repeat things like, I'm an amazing person, anyone would be lucky to be with me, I'm gonna have so much fun tonight. And one affirmation that I repeated when I went on my first date after 7 years was one by Amanda Francis, and it was, oh my god, this was a while ago now. I'm a catch. Oh, I can't remember what it was now. Oh, I'm the catch, I'm the vibe, I'm the whole damn prize. That was it. And I just repeated that to myself over and over again. And yeah, it might feel a little bit silly and it might feel a bit uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to saying positive things to yourself. But the thing is, when we say positive things to ourselves, we instantly feel better, and you want to feel better. You want to feel the best that you can be if you're going on a date. So whether or not you feel silly, it doesn't matter. And whether or not people would think, why are you saying such stupid things to yourself? That doesn't matter. What's important is how you feel about yourself, and that you go into any date feeling like your best. So that was a really good one. Other things that I like to do to like get my mindset in the right place before dating is, we talked about before, the spiraling into what ifs, the kind of negative what ifs of like, what if I don't connect with them, what if they don't think I'm attractive, all that kind of stuff. Well, I teach something in the confidence course called a mindset monologue, and it is essentially where you go into a spiral, but you spiral upwards. So you go into the what ifs, but instead of the negative what ifs that we naturally just go to, you spiral upwards into positive what ifs. So what if this first date is the best date I've ever been on? What if I go and I have an amazing time? What if this guy makes me feel like an absolute queen for the evening? What if I laugh all night? What if this is the best food I've ever eaten? What if I get home and I realise that I had a really wonderful evening with this guy? What if this is the one? And although you don't want to pin your hopes on the date being incredible, you do want to talk yourself into the fact that you're going to have a fun time. So there's no expectations on what the date may bring. There's no pinning your hopes on this has got to be the one, but you are talking yourself into the fact it's going to be a really good time regardless of what the outcome is. because what we think we believe, and what we believe becomes our reality. So if you go onto a first date saying, oh, I don't know whether this is going to be any good, what if he doesn't like me, what if there's no chat between us, what if we don't have any banter, then chances are, because you're going in with that mindset, you're already looking for that to be the situation. Whereas when you talk yourself into, you're going to have so much fun, it's going to be a really great evening, it doesn't matter what the other person is like or how they behave, you are going to have fun. When you go in with that mindset, that becomes your reality, because you're already in the headspace of, I'm going to have fun tonight no matter what happens. So even if it's a complete disaster, it doesn't matter, you're going to have a good time. Otherwise, it's like, I mean, I say this a lot with pretty much everything really, this whole what you think you believe and what you believe becomes your reality. Things become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So whatever you tell yourself, if you tell yourself when you're on dating apps, oh, I never meet anyone on a dating app, they're all just time wasters, that's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you're not going to spend the time and put the effort into meeting someone that isn't a time waster, if that makes sense. Whereas when you go onto the dating apps and you go, this is such a good way to meet my future husband, you go in with that energy of, I'm going to put in the time and effort, and I'm going to find someone who I am going to connect with. I'm going to find my person on there, and then that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now I've got good old hula. I've been using this for years. I just think I used to be so I used to put so much pressure on myself on first dates for it to be a certain way, for myself to come across in a certain way. I used to really build it up in my head of like a first date is a really big deal. And now, like, don't get me wrong, like there are still times where I feel anxious about a date, especially as I seem to be the one that gets there first. Like I'm typically late. Like that is just my life. I think it's the ADHD thing. I have a bit of time blindness. I'm always late. So I'm either always late or really early. There's like no in between for me. So when it comes to being like going on a date, I really do make the effort to try and get there on time, because I don't want them to think that I've just stood them up, or I'm not, like, I don't know. It's a big deal for me to try and get to a first date on time. But then what's happened with that is now I tend to be the first person to the date, and I absolutely hate waiting around. Like, I hate waiting for people, and I do think that this is sometimes part of the reason that I'm late all the time, because I hate just standing there waiting for someone to show up. It really, like, it irritates me to like the max. It bothers me. So there are times I can't do two things at once. So there are times where I will arrive at the first date first, and then whilst I'm standing there and kind of waiting for them to arrive, I end up feeling like nervous and anxious, and I'm like, oh my god, what are they going to show up? Like, what if they don't arrive? What if they don't come and I've been stood up? And when my brain starts to go in that direction, I then just start to repeat all the positive things to myself again. And I feel like the more I do it before I go on the date, then if I get to the date and I am first, the less likely my brain is to instantly go to the, oh, I'm about to be stood up kind of place. So although, yeah, I am, like, of course I am nervous sometimes, but I feel like all the work that I do before we get to that point means that for the most part I go in feeling confident. And then if I do get there first and I've got to wait for someone, I'll use that trick for the 90 seconds of confidence and think, okay, I've just got to hold confidence for the next 90 seconds. And I'll reach into my toolkit of 90-second confidence boosters, which I actually have I've got something called the confidence kit, which you can download for free, and it's got 9 90-second confidence boosters in there, so that if you need to feel confident instantly, you can reach for one of those tools. And I reach for those tools regularly. I've been on quite a few dates in the past, and I've had some really good dates, but I've also had some pretty bad ones, which I feel is probably universal for everyone really, isn't it? I remember going on one date. I'd temporarily split from my ex and I was on a date. This guy came to the bar that I was working with. This guy came to the bar that I was working at, and he was like, he stayed around till it had closed and was like, oh, I want to take you out. So I was like, okay, fine, gave him my number, and he was like, oh, where do you want to go? I was like, oh, I don't mind, like, you choose. I think he was like visiting the town. I was living in Melbourne at the time, and he was like visiting Melbourne temporarily. So he was just like, I think he was visiting Melbourne temporarily. So I was like, oh, you can choose, because I thought, well, one, I'm working, so I don't have the brain power to choose where we go, and also I quite like it if the guy decides what we're doing for the first date. So I was like, oh, you choose, like, I don't mind where we go, you decide, thinking, oh, he'll choose somewhere that he really wants to visit in the city whilst he's here. And then when he like told me the details, I was like, fine. So I like trekked across town from where I lived into the city to go on this date with him. And when I got there, it turned out he'd chosen the restaurant that was literally attached to the hotel. It was like literally downstairs, so all he'd had to do is come out of his room and go downstairs. And I was like, oh, okay, of all the places that we could have gone. But that was fine. And then we were chatting like over dinner, and I was, how old was I? 24, I think, at this time. 23 or 24? I think 24. And we were chatting over dinner, and obviously I was living in Melbourne. I'd been living in Australia for, how long at this point? For about 9 months at this point, 8-9 months. And I was talking about all the travels, like I'd lived in Thailand before, then I'd lived in Australia, I'd gone back to the UK for a little while and then gone back to Australia. So I'd already lived in Sydney, I'd been in Perth for a bit, I'd lived on a farm for a while, and then I was working in Melbourne. And I was like talking about this, and then I was talking about all the different travels that I wanted to have and the places that I wanted to go. And he was just like, yeah, but when are you going to settle down? And I was like, what? He was just like, but when are you going to settle down? Because like you're getting older, like, and he was like a year younger than me. I was like, I'm 24. Like, why would I settle down now? Which is, I know like some people settle down then, but at the time I was just absolutely baffled that he was asking me when I was going to settle down. He was like, yeah, but aren't you going to like buy a house? And when are you going to like, when do you want to settle down and have kids? And I was like, oh, I don't know. And like 8 years later, I still don't know when I want to settle down. So that was just funny. And back then as well, I think all he ordered was like tap water for the table. And me, like when I was younger, I don't want to say snobby, but like that was important to me. Like if all you're going to order is like tap water for the table, then I don't know. It was a thing. It wasn't a good date. I've been on better. And believe it or not, we didn't see each other again. It also didn't help that he had the same name as my ex. I think. Was that his name? And then I found out he'd slept with like one of my colleagues. One of the bartenders that I worked with, apparently he'd slept with her like a couple of days before, a couple of weeks before. And I didn't know. And then he'd obviously like asked me out on a date, and I was just like, oh, well, it would have been nice to know that, and I'd have probably said no. So yeah, fun times. So I think that's it. I think that's all I've got to say on the things that I say to myself. I do feel like it is hard to do like get ready with me's and like talk about things at the same time. I find it quite difficult, but I hope somewhere in here you can use the things that I've said about like the things that I say to myself before I go on a date, and I hope that they are helpful for you, so that the next time you go on a first date you feel so much more confident about what to like before you even get to the date. And in the next video I'm going to talk about the act confident piece. I'm going to talk about the practical things I do before I go on a first date to ensure that I show up feeling full of confidence. So go watch that now. I'll see you there.